Black people, if you really want to fix the problem, here's just 5 things that you should think about doing. Here's number 5, pull up your pants. Number 4 now is the N-word.
Supreme victory!
Hey, what's going on, everyone? How you doing? Sorry if my face is looking a little puffy, man. My allergies are really destroying me today.
You're just fat.
But we're going to talk about something interesting. You know, a lot of people have been hitting me up and want to hear my takes about certain things that have been going on. And I thought this was really interesting because I've been seeing Terry Crews kind of speaking out and being cautious and criticizing Black Lives Matter, because I'm sure he's aware of some of the things that have happened a few years ago. A lot of stuff that a lot of people are ignoring, which I understand there's a lot of people that don't want to focus on the negative stuff and they just want to focus on positive things and, you know, sweep other stuff under the rug and pretend it doesn't exist. And Terry Crews isn't doing that, and because of that, he's been getting a ton of backlash, you know. So before we jump into this video interview that he did with Don Lemon, we need to keep 2 things in mind. The first thing is that people are really stupid.
Think of how stupid the average person is, and then realize half of them are stupider than that.
And second, these mainstream media news anchors or personalities, whatever you want to call them, they're all fake, man.
Then there are some people, they're not stupid, they're full of shit.
I would say 99% of the time they're reading a script, even though it seems like it's their own take. They're usually guided, and it's like, you need to talk about this. So a lot of times there's flip-flopping and whatnot. You have Don Lemon, who has takes where he's just trashing white people a lot of the times. But meanwhile, he's, you know, I don't know if he's married or if he's just dating a white guy, whichever, he's with this white dude. So I'm like, he can't really believe the stuff that he's saying. You have examples of like Tucker Carlson, for example, who would back saying, hey, you need to wear a mask and whatnot, but then will flip like very soon afterwards.
Many schools that do plan to reopen will do so under a series of restrictions that have no basis of any kind in science. It's a kind of bizarre health theater. Students will be kept 6 feet apart, everyone will have to wear a mask, class size will be limited in some schools, there will be scheduled bathroom breaks, etc., etc. No sports. It's insulting. It's ridiculous. They're telling you masks don't work unless you work in a hospital? How does that work? Does mask effectiveness change based on what job you do? They're only useful if you're already sick? What? Coronavirus can spread from asymptomatic carriers. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Oh, wait, you're just too dumb to wear the mask. Okay, because they're really hard to put on. Of course masks work. Everyone knows that. Dozens of research papers have proved it.
My point is, when people like Don Lemon are going hard in the paint or whatnot about something, I take it with a grain of salt because I don't really know what they believe. Now let's get into the video.
Actor and activist Terry Crews facing backlash for tweeting, "We must ensure Black Lives Matter doesn't morph into Black Lives Better." Here's how he explained it. Are all white people bad? No. Are all black people good? No. Knowing this reality, I stand on my decision to unite with good people, no matter the race, creed, or ideology. Given the number of threats against this decision, I also decide to die on this hill.
Ooh, what a hot take. Oh my God. Not a hot take at all. It's pretty basic, but people are really stupid and they don't want to hear it. You know, one of the reasons why I'm wearing this Kill Switch Engage shirt, because it has one of my favorite lyrics from the song Vita Infra, where it just says, no one is placed higher than another. No matter race or creed or gender, we must teach forgiveness and compassion for all life. And it kind of sounds like Terry Crews believes that. Kind of like I believe it. It's something that's really important to me. It's something that when I heard it when I was a teenager, I'm like, I like hearing this heavy music and hearing this really great message. This is good stuff. But it seems like people don't want to hear that for some reason. People don't want to hear that say, oh, you said there's bad black people? What are you trying to say, bro? Oh, you don't want things to be Black Lives Better? Because what he was saying before was talking about black supremacy. And I saw people say things like, there is no such thing as black supremacy. And I'm saying, I'm like, what are you trying to say? And those same people are the ones that saying black people can't be racist because white people have all the power. So black people are weak and they can't hate other races. Okay.
There are some very, very, militant type forces in Black Lives Matter. And what I was issuing was a warning. You know, it's one of those things where I've been a part of different groups, I've been a part of different things, and you see how extremes can really can go far and can go wild. And then when you issue a warning, and when a warning is seen as detrimental to the movement, how can you ever have checks and balances? And when you have the leaders of the Black Lives Movement who are now talking about, you know, if we don't get our demands, we're gonna burn it down. Other Black people who are talking about working with other whites and other races, they're being viewed as sellouts or called Uncle Toms. You start to understand that you are now, you know, being controlled. You're not being treated as loved. You're actually being controlled. Someone wants to control the narrative.
It sounds like Terry Crews just understands. It sounds like Terry Crews isn't an ideologue. And that's usually an issue when you have people that are ideologues, which are the loudest people typically when it comes to all this slacktivism. They're screaming and screeching and hollering that it needs to be this way, this, that. And then when somebody else pushes back and says, whoa, we need to take a step back and not become what we hate or what is oppressing us. We don't want to be like them, right? And those people, they disagree with that because they do want to be like them. They do want supremacy, and they do typically hate white people and stuff like that. You've seen the rhetoric over and over and over and over again, and it's sad.
There's a lot that you said. You think Black Lives Matter is, you said you think it's an extreme movement? Because it's now part of the...
No, but this is the thing. It's a great mantra. It's a true mantra. Black lives do matter. But when you're talking about an organization, you're talking about the leaders, you're talking about the people who are responsible for putting these things together.
I got you. So let me, but
different things.
Wow, that's strange. He said a lot of things that I've said, where it's not about the message, right? The people are saying certain things. Like, I think 99.9% of the people agree with that message and the stuff that's being said, but it's what is going on with the movement as a whole. Who's in charge? Who's doing what? And, you know, I've made a couple of videos. When I made, especially my second video criticizing Black Lives Matter, I broke things down of what's happening and who started what, and it's just not looking good overall. You know, it's kind of like, say, if you guys remember Occupy Wall Street, the message going after the Wall Street and the bankers and the 1%ers and all that stuff, that's all well and good, but what's actually happening? Let's get to the root of this. And there was a lot of just slacktivism. There was a lot of people just, you know, bored, and then it was getting further and further away. There was people that might even be co-opting stuff. It was just a giant mess, and I saw that happening a few years ago. You know, there's a lot of people that think, I don't know, man. There's a lot of people that are saying, oh, well, this is different this time, and I'm like, I think the situation that sparked it off is different. I think what happened to George Floyd was way different from, say, some of the narratives that were spun with other things that were happening, like, say, with Mike Brown. You know, things like that, where it's like there's still unfortunate circumstances that happen, but the media and other people spun a narrative to, you know, spark this flame. But the recipe was already in place with what happened in 2020. So I'm not comparing those two things, but there's a lot of opportunists and there's a lot of people trying to make money. And at the end of the day, it's like, when it's all said and done, is anything going to change? And we're just going to have to wait and see. I already know that there's already stuff happening with police reform, or they're trying to reallocate some of the money and stuff like that. But I don't know if that's going to fix the problem, because the police officers need better training. And I don't know if they're going to get it just by funding other programs. But I digress.
I don't want to move from one oppressor to the next. And one thing is really
who's the next oppressor? Who's the next oppressor?
Oh, when I describe this, when you look in the city of Chicago, there are 9 children who died by gun violence, by black on black gun violence, from June 20th all the way to today. And you're talking about, even with the Atlanta child murders, there were 28 kids who died in 2 years. You're talking about a month, and you have 9 black kids, and the Black Lives Matter movement has said nothing.
Oh, don't do it, Terry. You just done did it, man. You said the thing that the mainstream media and other people just can't stand when you talk about those issues. It just seems, if you're white, it's racist. If you're black, you're a traitor or something like that. Even though, to me, in my opinion, it shows that you really care, because there are some really horrible statistics that are happening in their own backyards, you know, like when they talk about Chicago and whatnot. it's one of those things where it's like, you know how they say you got to love yourself before you love other people? It's one of those things where it's like, okay, we got to take care of what's happening in our communities. We got to take care of this stuff. We got to better ourselves. We got to stop killing each other. And then we expand from there, you know, because it almost seems hypocritical, or like people don't take others seriously when it's like, we want this to stop. And it's like, well, you guys aren't even stopping what's happening over here. It's a serious situation and it's unfortunate, and people don't want to listen. And then it lets you know that you don't really give a fuck about Black lives, do you? You like this chanting, you like slacktivism, you like putting hashtags and stuff, you like posting memes and then replying, oh, guess what, Black lives still matter. Yet, like, I don't know, you don't seem to give a shit about all the other problems that are plaguing the black communities in America.
About this
What does that have to do with equality, though, Terry? I don't understand what that has to do with equality, because listen, there's crime. There are people in those communities those people aren't just being nonchalant about gun violence. I lived in Chicago. There are many people who are working in those communities to try to get rid of the gun violence. The gun culture in this country is prevalent, but I don't understand what that has to do with a movement that's for equality for black people.
This is the thing, Don. You know, black people need to hold other black people accountable. I said this the same thing. This is the Black America's version of the Me Too movement. If anything is going to change, we ourselves need to look at our own communities and look at each other and say, this thing cannot go down. And this is the thing too. There are a lot of great people there who are held hostage by people who literally are running these neighborhoods with violence and then claiming that Black Lives Matter. When you look at the parents of these little kids who are saying, hey man, why aren't they speaking up for me too?
Yeah, this is something that a lot of people don't recognize. And right now I live in an area where I can really speak to what's happening and how things are, because I'm in South Central Los Angeles, you know, as people call the hood. And yeah, man, there's a lot of stuff that happens over here. There's a lot of just disregard for life, and you know, a lot of people get very mad at, say, when police do really shady stuff, and they do, and meanwhile they'll turn around and just blast somebody because, you know, a disagreement, turf wars, wearing the wrong colors. This shit still happens, you know. And I actually lived around here over 10 years ago, and the first night, and I've mentioned this in a video before, the first night I was over at my grandma's house, and there used to be a shot caller for the Bloods that lived across the street, and there was some gang disputes, shotgun blasts and stuff like that, and it was very common. So the cops just rolled by, flashed their lights, and then just left. They didn't even get out of the car because it's so fucking routine over here. This is this kind of stuff that does need to change. And yeah, most people don't like this, but it's that nothing's really getting done about it. And what do you do about it? A lot of these dudes that are running guns and drugs and stuff have plenty of weapons. How do you deal with them? You know, it's a very complicated issue, and it's something that it just gets swept under the rug at the end of the day. And so I don't see anything racist or controversial about that. I think what Terry Crews is saying is common sense, man.
The Black Lives Matter movement was started because it was talking about police brutality. If you want an all Black Lives Matter movement that talks about gun violence in communities, including, you know, black communities, then start that movement with that name. But that's not what Black Lives Matter is about. It's not an all-encompassing.
It's not all-encompassing. Bruh, that is the dumbest shit ever. Black Lives Matter. Why would it not include all black lives? Oh, it's talking about specifically police brutality. And that's the interesting thing that I've talked about as well, where when it becomes, and Terry Crews is right, when it becomes about race, and specifically about race, we forget about what's the goal. Just like Don Lemon admitted to himself by accident that when we want to talk about police reform and police brutality, most people aren't really talking about that because it's about Black Lives Matter. Because now you're having stuff like, oh, in Texas, they're not going to say master bedroom anymore. all these voice actors are gonna stop voicing black characters because they're not black. Like, you're getting symptoms of stuff like that nobody asked for because of how just mind-washing Black Lives Matter, Black Lives, that's it, that's it. And then all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute. Who's talking about the police reform? Do you guys even know what's happening in New York City and how much money they're cutting and where they're cutting it from? And I don't think that this is going to really solve the problem. I don't see any big buzz about it. I just see chants and stuff and slacktivism, and I see like, oh, here we go again. Like this is gonna be an issue moving forward. I don't, I just refer to that George Carlin clip.
But when you look at the organization, police brutality is not the only thing they're talking about.
I know that, but I agree, but that's not what the Black Lives Matter movement is about, Terry.
Oh, what a piece of garbage, man. Don Lemon is so disappointing. He's so disappointing, because I just know that he knows exactly what Terry's saying, and he's just being such an idiot.
You'll be listening to some guy and saying, well, he's fairly intelligent. He's full of shit.
Especially because this is a really huge opportunity for things to, get on track with unity and focusing on other issues. Well, that's all I have for you guys today. Y'all take care, and I'll see you in the next one.